I was sitting in a classroom, staring at a test. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't recall learning any of the materials. And the harder I tried to remember, the more anxiety builds inside of me until I jolted awake, covered with sweat. Thank goodness it was just a dream. But it was the same nightmare that had been reoccurring in my dreams for over a decade. One day, as I was talking with one of my colleagues who was a psychology professor, he told me that my symptoms were very similar to post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Me? PTSD? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm growing up in China in the 1980s. Due to the one-child policy, I was that lucky only child in my family. My parents, both with their middle school education, they worked in an iron factory for their whole lives. Experiencing the hardship of life, they wanted me to escape their way of living by attending college. And they told me a good education will lead to a better future. I believed in them. From early on, I pushed myself to excel academically. I always ranked top 3% in my classes. In my young mind, learning equals getting good grades. Grades is everything for me. It was a symbol of success because it put me ahead of my peers. It was also a source of validation because the approval I received from my parents' eyes definitely validated my value. But with these positives also came a constant fear. If I fail a test, I would be a failure. I would disappoint my parents by not living up to their expectations. This type of fear intensified in high school because of the college entrance examination. That is the exam happened at the end of high school, and students will go to the university that they're going to go to will solely depend on the test scores from that test. And that test happens only once a year, again, at the end of high school. If you ask me, if you could relive any of your previous years, what would you be? What would that be? I would tell you I would relive any of the years except the 3 years in high school, because that was the darkest 3 years in my life, mainly because testing was frequent. To make things worse, after each major test, the scores will be publicized, so you knew where you were in class, and your classmates knew it too. Wow. As you can imagine, I worked hard, relentlessly, under huge pressure. And I still remember so clearly those countless nights I had to study until early in the morning. And then at 5:30 in the morning, my mom would wake me up to get ready for a new day. My mom never failed that duty. I don't know how she did it. Constant lack of sleeping numbed me. To me at the time, the only purpose of living basically is just to get grades so I can go to a college. The good news is my hard work paid off because I was accepted by my desired university. In college, I continued the same pattern of living, studying. Study hard, get good grades, make myself and my parents proud. The strange thing happened though, when I graduated, because I did not have a job. I did not know who I was. I did not know what I wanted to be or where I wanted to go. Didn't my parents told me a college education would give me a brighter future, but where was my future? Did I miss something in my education that sent me to this dead end? In my confusion, I started reading. But this time, I did not read for test. I read to find the answer why I failed my life at that time. Try to meet my own curiosity. Do you believe that things are meant to be? I do. One day in the city library, close to the closing time, I was wandering around among the shelves, and my finger was lightly tracing the spines of the book, and then it just stopped at a book titled The Importance of Living. That title just caught my attention immediately. I did not know why. And the book was written by a Chinese philosopher, educator, translator. He has a lot of titles, and also novelist. His name was Lin Yutang. And in this book, one chapter focused on education. And the one particular section of that chapter talks about testing. It went like this. We have this system because we are educating people in masses. As if in a factory, and anything which happens inside the factory must go by a dead and mechanical system. In order to protect its name and standardize its products, a school must certify them with diplomas. With diplomas then comes the necessity of grading, and with grading then comes the necessity of school marks. And in order to have school marks, there must be recitations, exams, tests. The whole thing forms an entirely logical sequence, and there's no escape from it. That moment of reading was transformative. I finally realized that I had misunderstood the purpose of learning for so long. In my mind, learning was always about getting good grades. That was such a narrow and misleading focus. So reflecting upon my educational experiences, I could see how it has been marked by fear, stress, and a constant chase for perfection. So at that moment, I decided to become a teacher educator. I wanted to help my future teachers understand and see education for what it truly is: a process of growth, curiosity, and a passion. So with that, I started working for master's and my terminal degree in order to become a professor in the university. I have been a social studies educator for 11 years. And in my entire career, I have never used a test in my classes. Just because I don't believe my students' teaching ability can be tested. Instead, I challenge them to build lesson plans, unit plans, do projects, and give presentations in class. And each assignment requires critical thinking. The true innovative moment happened actually several years ago when I learned about this concept called ungrading. So I learned about this concept from the Center for Teaching and Learning here at USD. Ungrading takes stress and points or grades out of learning. The instructor mainly provides rich feedback to their students so that the students will know where they did well and then where they still can be improved, and the instructor also tells them how to improve. Ungrading has a magic power. It can effectively shift the students' attention from solely focusing on grades to learning. And next, I want to share two of the very commonly used practice in my ungraded classes. The first one is feedback only. Like I said, As an instructor, I provide feedback only to my students. I do not attach points to any of the assignments. I believe we learn the most from our own mistakes. So without points attached to any assignments, students can really feel free to make mistakes, because they won't be afraid to get points off because I don't give points. And they will know they will have a chance to revise their work after receiving my feedback. And the way I do it is, first I will explain how to do certain assignments, right? The instruction. And then I will ask questions to make sure that everybody understands how to do it. Then they start to do their assignment, finish it, submit it in the Dropbox. I will review the work, and then I follow the sandwich style feedback to give them feedback. The sandwich style means I start with something positive, tell them what I like about their work, and then I move on to the places I think they can improve, and then I give them ideas how to improve it. In the end, I end up on something positive and encourage them to revise their work. Then students will take my feedback, revise it, resubmit, I look at it again. This cycle goes on until their work meets the learning objective. And the second one I use is guided reflections. Reflection is an integral part of learning. It helps students to see what they have learned so that they can be more aware of who they are as the learner, and then they can use what they learned to create meaning in their life. For any project I ask my students to do, there will be a self-reflection attached to it in the end. In addition to these project-related self-reflection, I do two additional, I would consider those major ones. One happens in the middle of the semester. I call it a midterm self-reflection. And the other one happens at the end of the semester, which I call it end of semester reflection. These two are very similar. I provide my students with a set of reflection questions, about 10 to 15-ish for each. Like for the midterm reflection, there were some simple questions for like, what were your goals for this course? What have you learned so far in this course? Have you missed any assignments? If so, what are they? List them here and give yourself a deadline. And have you submitted your assignments on time? Have you missed any classes? If so, what legitimate reasons do you have to miss those classes? And then the questions always end up in this one, which is my favorite. If you could assign yourself a grade now, what would it be? And why do you give yourself that grade? Explain. And then at the end of the semester, I gave them the end of semester reflection. Again, another set of questions. They're different. Like, review each of your individual assignments and my feedback. Have you revised them? Why or why not? Then review the group projects and also my feedback. Considering your contribution to that group project, what have you learned from it? What is the most profound insight have you gained from this class? And again, the last question is, please suggest a final grade for yourself and use evidence to justify why you give yourself that grade. Ungrading, like I said earlier, it's just having this magic power. I gave learning back to my students, put it in their hand, and let them decide how much they want to get out of my class. Each semester, on day one, I usually tell the students, the only thing that matters to me the most is your learning and your growth. And you can decide how you want to learn in my class. And my students tend to enjoy this kind of learning environment because I saw their feedback in the end of semester, the anonymous feedback. A typical one goes like this: I like how this course is ungraded. I was a little skeptical at the beginning because I thought that I wouldn't do the work as the course was ungraded, but I was wrong. The feedback makes me learn more and work harder on my next assignments. Ungrading may not lighten an instructor's workload, but the time and effort I put into this approach has proved to be immensely rewarding because I have seen more students who are intrinsically motivated. I also feel a stronger relationship with my students. And of course, the most important, I see more happy and less stressed students. I think I should thank my past educational experiences because it has taught me how much damage testing can do to me and to people like me. Learning should be a pure and enjoyable journey, not a race for grades or external rewards. And if we push students to learn something instead of for their own curiosity, then education loses its meaning. It becomes a task, not a discovery, a chore, not a joy. I think we owe it to them and to ourselves to create an environment where learning is driven by intrinsic motivation, creativity, and the wonder of knowing the world around us. Thank you.